Hey friends, fans, and automobiles, what's up? This is Nicholas Cross live from sunny Chicago, Illinois, and we are here on this epic Tuesday, September 9th, with some humongous news coming from a place that doesn't have too much to do with wrestling. How about the company called Apple? Many of you guys out there, guys, gals, and everyone alike, you use a very popular device on a daily basis called the iPhone. Of course, today marked the day that the iPhone 6 was announced, and we are beyond excited because there was a lot of different stuff that was centered around the iPhone 6 that was announced and released, and two of those things were a much bigger iPhone size. You can get them in two sizes nowadays. It's going to be a 4.7-inch screen and a 5.5-inch screen. Another thing that was released was the Apple Watch, which is really cool. It looked like one of the most interactive watches I've ever seen in my entire life. Another thing that Apple released was Apple Pay, which is a simple solution to replacing the wallet. And of course, for the first time ever, these will be introduced into the iPhone, the new iPhone line, with NFC capability. So that's really cool stuff. And I know what many of you are thinking. Well, I tuned into this to hear about wrestling, to hear about what happened on Raw last night, to hear about what happened at TNA last week, or all this stuff. What in the world does iPhone have to do with Rockin' Wrestling Radio? And the answer for me is quite simple. It's all centered around the WWE Network. Could you imagine you go and get this new iPhone 6 with one with a 4.7-inch screen with 1 million pixels? Could you imagine watching the WWE Network on this display? Wouldn't that thing be sick? Or how about the 5.5-inch model? They have advertised that this thing has 2 million total pixels. And if you think about 2 million pixels in a 5.5-inch screen, it kind of blows your mind. And if you think about the high-def quality that you would get from watching the WWE Network, or getting on YouTube and watching some of your favorite wrestling matches, or going to the TNA side, or whatever they got going on, or Ring of Honor, and seeing what all they got going on, and watching all of this great wrestling right there at your fingertip on these new iPhones. I'm kind of excited when the time comes for them to release it to the public, getting my hands on one of these bad boys, and seeing what the network looks like on the display. Another thing is you just think about the possibilities of the WWE Network and the technology that Apple's releasing. Not that they collaborate at all, but I was just thinking about it as I was watching this Apple Watch. I was thinking, wouldn't it be really cool if while I'm flying through the air, if I can have my Apple Watch tuned into the WWE Network, and I'm sitting there watching that thing on my wrist? Wouldn't that be really neat to watch Hulk Hogan body slam Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3, to watch that on my wrist, to be able to tune into that right there on my watch? And that's the kind of stuff that just sets me apart when it comes to technology and professional wrestling. It's how it all works together. It's how it all meshes. And another thing is the Apple Pay. Could you imagine using Apple Pay to go ahead and take care of your $9.99 monthly bill for the WWE Network? Wouldn't that be really cool? It's like it just integrates everything to me. And, of course, I don't have a clue that Apple Pay is going to work with the WWE Network. In fact, I don't really have a clue how Apple Pay is going to work. I just know that it's kind of cool to watch as Apple continues to evolve into this gigantic company that it is, notwithstanding or taking anything away from the other companies, Samsung or HTC or LG, or any of the other big platforms that create technology, HP, Dell, any of that. I'm not trying to take that away. It's just that today was an epic day, because if you guys know, we've been using iPhones forever, and the displays have been 3.5 inches and 4 inches, and there's really not been any other options unless you go up to get an iPad or the iPad mini. And now all of a sudden we're in a larger display where we can really feel the iPhone. Of course, this thing's thinner, and it's just a better experience all the way around. At least I think it is. And then you add that to the fact that iOS 8 is going to be released here shortly, and it's a really exciting time for me because I want to get what the WWE Network has to offer in these iPhones. I want to see what the developers put together for me to watch on my iPhone. And, of course, as we talk about the WWE Network, and we're going to use this as the opening segment, it blows my mind how many constant complaints I'm hearing about the WWE Network. It's a buffering problem. There's all this stuff about how you can read about the event and the rumors and the information's all over the internet. Why in the world would you pay $9.99 a month to watch this thing? There's complaints about how the programming, while it may be original, isn't really original. I've got to be honest with you. I don't understand who on the face of planet Earth has a real legitimate complaint about the WWE Network. I think that the WWE Network is one of the most innovative programs ever put together in professional wrestling. It's WrestleMania 1 in 2014, if you think about it. It's simply the most amazing program, or simply the most amazing piece of technology or app or whatever you would call it, that you could ever have at your fingertips. I mean, there's thousands of hours of video, thousands of hours of footage that you can check out on the WWE Network. You can go way back to 1980 whatever and watch whatever. You can get some stuff from the 70s. You can come up to the 90s. I mean, I don't know if you guys were WCW fans, but you can watch the Sting and Vader feud. You can see the Sting and Flair feuds, the Sting and Hogan feuds. You can get the Flair and Hogan feud. You can go back to the 80s. You can watch Flair Rhodes, Flair Steamboat, Flair Wyndham, Flair anybody and everybody who Flair ever worked against. It's all there. You can go to the 90s and watch Hart Yokozuna. You can see Yokozuna and Lex Luger. You can see the advent of the Attitude Era. And then there's all this original programming that WWE's putting together for the network. And that is not limited, but including the Monday Night Wars. And it's more interactive. It's more entertaining to me to watch it as a weekly program that we can tune into and check out and see what's going on. And as we continue in the WWE Network, there's the original programming. And when I think about original programming, I'm simply blown away. I mean, Legends House was amazing. And all the other, the 10 countdowns and all this stuff that they do on here, it's unbelievable. And anytime I tune into the network, I can tune in and it's live. And I'm watching whatever's blasting out across the network all over the world. And it's so cool just to be part of that history and to be able to relive everything that I did in my childhood in the 80s, when I was a professional wrestler in the 90s, what happened as I was a producer in the 2000s, maybe even things that I was involved in. And it's so cool to be able to be part of that even now, that I don't see any complaints involved with it. I don't see why we would complain about it. Now, you add to all that information the fact that it's $10 a month, $120 a year. Let's say that you go to Starbucks on a daily basis. You're going to spend $7-8 there every single day. Well, don't go one day, and you've paid for the WWE Network. You can go without your Java Latte Mocha Chaka and whatever else you got to do just to watch WWE Wrestling anytime, anywhere, on virtually any device that you have. I have the thing rigged on my phone, on my computer, on anything and everything that's available. WWE Network is right there for me. And I know that it's across all kinds of platforms, and it's readily available for you as well. And it's only $10 a month. Heck, that's a ramen noodle. You go get a ramen noodle one night a week instead of going out to eat for dinner. You've paid for WWE Network. It's amazing to me why there's so many complaints. And then you get the WWE pay-per-views every month, and they're not any additional charges. There's no overly abundant $39.99 price tag. It's simply $10 a month. You get the thousands of hours of programming, and then you get Royal Rumble. We got to see SummerSlam, WrestleMania, whatever else there is out there. It's all available right there at the WWE Network. Who cares about buffering speed? I have to deal with buffering too. I have to deal with right in the middle of Chris Jericho and Bray Wyatt, and I didn't even get to see the end of the match because of buffering. But you know what? I'm going to tell you the truth. I really don't care. I'm getting the full effect of the pay-per-view event, the grand show, if you will. I'm also getting thousands of hours of content each and every day at my fingertips and at my disposal that I can just go and look at anytime I want to. And another feature of one of my favorite things, it's a feature that I love beyond anything and everything at the WWE Network, and maybe this is my only complaint about the WWE Network as well. It's the Legends of Wrestling show, where you had those guys, the panel, the Legends panel. Sometimes it was Jerry the King Lawler, Jim Ross, Mean Gene Okerlund, Michael P.S. Hayes, some other guys that were notable, Eric Bischoff, Dusty Rhodes, and the list goes on and on. You had this panel of guys that talked in almost like a shoot formation or shoot form or factor. They talked about things that happened in their genre of wrestling and things that are happening in this genre of wrestling, and it was really entertaining to hear some of the stories about guys that were really bad news in the backstage area, or guys that were really good in the backstage area, or some of the heat that was garnered or taken during some era in wrestling, or the advent of Hogan or the advent of Savage or whatever it was. And if I did have a complaint about the WWE Network, it would probably be the fact that this isn't there anymore. You can't get anything that's recent. I would love for that Legends of Wrestling show to continue because I simply love to watch what these guys who were in the business while I was watching the business have to say about the business then, now, and what it could be in the future. So in a nutshell, and I know that I've went on a tangent here over the WWE Network, but iPhone 6 releases, and we need to be getting a hold of that thing so that we can watch the WWE Network on it. But before we do any of that, we probably need to purchase the WWE Network. If you're a die-hard wrestling fan, as I am, I think it's time for us to step up and support the business that we love. You know, I'll be honest with you. I would replace Hulu Plus. I would replace Netflix. I would replace whatever of those other services just so that I could have the WWE Network. If I couldn't afford it, I would cut out a burger at Burger King one night and eat a ramen noodle or something crazy just so that I could have the WWE Network because it carries importance. It carries importance in that it's chock full of history. Everywhere you look on the WWE Network, you can find unbelievable moments in professional wrestling history. You can see when Steiner first won the WCW Championship, Booker T first won the WCW Championship. You can watch the rise of Stone Cold Steve Austin, the rise of The Rock, Rocky Maivia. You can go back to Hogan's day, Flair's day. It's all there, and it's all readily available for you. So without further ado, it is this man's complaint to you, the wrestling fan, that we shouldn't be complaining over the WWE Network because it's what's good for business. As a matter of fact, I would venture to say that the WWE Network is the future of professional wrestling. Hey guys, gals, fans, friends, automobiles, I thank you guys for tuning in with us today. Stay tuned. After the break, we're going to be talking about WWE Raw last night and a lot more to come. Yodelay, yodelay, hey, Nicholas Cross right back. I thank you guys for hanging on while I got myself a nice cold glass of Diet Mountain Dew. And I don't know if you heard it, but I was doing a little bit of yodeling. Do you know when I was yodeling? Because today is Tuesday, September 9th, and on this day, we celebrate the birthday of one of the early female wrestlers, Ida Mae Martinez. I don't know if you guys have ever checked her out, but man, oh man, she was quite something to look at way back in the day. You can Google her and look on Wikipedia. There is a really raunchy picture, if you will, of her back in the day, all in black and white and in a two-piece that covered her midriff and all kinds of other places. Wow. How far has wrestling gone? Happy birthday, Ida Mae Martinez, as well as a veritable pantheon of other guys and gals that were involved in professional wrestling. Of course, I will try my best to pronounce some of the Chinese guys, but we're going to be celebrating the birthdays of Crazy Mary Dobson, Sawako Shimono, Tracy Cherry Bomb. I don't know if you guys remember her from Shimmer. She was a really famous lady and preliminary wrestler in Shimmer Wrestling. Of course, also another guy that we may be familiar with is Trevor Murdoch. You may know him as Jethro Holliday, Roscoe Jackson, Stand Up, Trevor Murdoch, of course, and then Trevor Rhodes. He's right now featured over in Japan, but he could have been called in Noah and Ring Ka King, as well as WWE back in the day as Trevor Murdoch, one of the greats who had, I don't know, he had that body that really was shaped like Dusty Rhodes. He wasn't the stereotypical wrestler of 2014, was he? But he certainly, I thought he was a good wrestler, actually, and why guys like him just don't make it, I'll never understand. He has that Bray Wyatt style and size, but he just, for some reason, he couldn't make it. Of course, Briar Wellington, happy birthday to you. El Intocable, happy birthday to you. Paul Isidoro from Reno, Nevada. You guys may recognize that name a little bit from back in the day. Of course, we know him as an independent wrestler, and he was featured in some of the APW events, and good friend there. Happy birthday to Paul Isidoro. Jun Kasai, here comes one that that I'm not going to be able to hit, Masanori Ishikuru, and then Shane Ballard, Mark Schrader, Jeff Hammond, and of course, as we talked about, the lovely, vivacious bombshell, born in 1931, Ida Mae Martinez from New London, Connecticut. Go check her out if you want one heck of a show. And of course, happy birthday to that entire list. And man, what a list. And I want to say this also, it's not just a big list of wrestlers, but it's an international list of wrestlers. As we can see, there's guys from Scotland and Ontario and Kansas and the unknown all involved, well, as well as British Columbia, all involved in this list. Of course, if you guys will give me the opportunity to slow down just a little bit, we're going to talk about the deaths of a few individuals in professional wrestling that took place on September 9th. We will always remember your life, celebrate the good times, as well as mourn the losses of 3 individuals who gave us so much of their lives as it relates to professional wrestling. And of course, those names are Leroy McGurk. We're not too sure how he dies, at least not in my Rolodex here, but we're going to miss you, Leroy McGurk. He was born on December 13th, 1910, and in 1988, on September 9th, he passed away. We will continue to celebrate your lineage, the heritage that you laid, the patchwork that you laid for us to get where we are today, Mr. McGurk, as well as Gus Sonnenberg. He passed away from leukemia. He was from Ewan, Michigan. He died, he was born on March 6th, 1898. Another one that laid the groundwork for us here in what wrestling is today. Of course, he died September 9th, 1944, due to complications with leukemia. We will continue to celebrate all that you did for us, Mr. Sonnenberg, as well as mourn your passing way back in the day. Another name that may be recognized or may not be recognized is Mike Paidosis. You guys, you remember anything about the 70s in professional wrestling? In the 60s, Worldwide Wrestling Federation was on the map, and Mike Paidosis was part of that organization. Of course, he passed away on September 9th of 2002, and he was born January 5th of 1924. Mike, we will miss you, we will celebrate you, and we thank you for all that you've done. Well, September 9th is not only a day that we're going to celebrate birthdays and mourn deaths, it's also a day that we remember wrestling history on September 9th. And September 9th has been rather an eventful day throughout the history of professional wrestling. If I can go back to Monday, September 9th, 1991, at the Ottawa Civic Centre in Ontario, Canada, we saw quite the event, as it was a house show, but it featured something that I was very interested in, and that was the British Bulldog versus Paul Perez, as well as Jake Roberts versus Tony Diamond. This was a time in wrestling when the skills of individuals had to be shown on a larger level. Well, that was done via the induction of these Superstars wrestling shows. And, of course, that's how stars became stars back in the day. So we thank those guys way back in the early 90s who took the time, not the British Bulldog, not Jake Roberts, but the individuals they wrestled. We thank the Martin Roys, the Tony Diamonds, the Paul Perez, the Barry Hardys, the Joe Milanos. These individuals who took the time to lose each and every single week at wrestling shows just so that we could be entertained today. Of course, September 9th wasn't just limited to the 1991 TV taping of WWF Superstars. It was also an event on 1996 where WCW Nitro would air. And wrestling back then was a different genre in and of itself. The main event of this particular Nitro was John Tenta versus the Macho Man, Randy Savage. I don't know if you guys remember John Tenta, but he was also known as Big John Tenta or Avalanche over in the WWF. Of course, there were other matches, such as the Faces of Fear, Ming and Barbarian versus Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge. Really good match that it would still be a great match today is Rey Mysterio Jr. and Billy Kidman. Rick Steiner versus Lex Luger. I'm glad that Steiner won. Let me just say it like that. Juventud Guerrera versus Joe Gomez. Scott Norton versus Sergeant Craig Pitbull Pittman. And, of course, Super Callow versus Pat Tanaka. And, you know, as we look back at the history of wrestling, it's just so entertaining to see how different it is and how interesting things have been since they've changed. As a matter of fact, on Monday, September 9th in 2002, we continued to watch the change from 1996 as WWE Raw was featured featured at the Hilton Coliseum in Ames, Iowa, close to my hometown. And the main event there was Rob Van Dam versus Chris Jericho, Jeff Hardy, and The Big Show in a four-way elimination. And I said it that way because Rob Van Dam got the V. Really entertaining stuff back in this genre of wrestling. I don't know if you guys remember, but this was a day when you got to see all kinds of neat things. It was Test and William Regal. What an unusual combination. Taking on Booker T and Goldust. Another unusual combination, but quite the tag team. You got to see Triple H, one of the great legends of wrestling, going against Spike Dudley. And in his own right, he's another one of the great legends of wrestling. One of the names that actually drew for who he was. Christian and Lance Storm representing Canada, taking on Bradshaw and Kane. What a combination. And then, of course, we were watching the singles competition, and we were seeing the advent of Bully Ray when we watched Bubba Ray Dudley squaring off one-on-one against Steven Richards for the win. But wrestling would not limit itself to 2002 on September 9th. We would continue throughout the decades to find that wrestling would become more entertaining and more interesting as we progressed. Like September 9th, 2012, NWA TNA presented No Surrender. And, of course, when you talk about TNA, you can't help but to mention talent. Look at the main event here. Jeff Hardy versus Bully Ray. A great tag team with Christopher Daniels and Kazarian against AJ Styles and Kurt Angle. Rob Van Dam versus Magnus. Zimmerman versus Sanjay Dutt. Austin Aries versus the Armbreaker. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And it was such a great event, and we are so proud that we were part of that event. And then, of course, in 2013, Monday Night Raw would return to September 9th at Air Canada Centre in Toronto, and we got to see one of the lost guys to WWE right now, CM Punk, in a dark match against Curtis Axel. Daniel Bryan would square off one-on-one against Dean Ambrose. And the reason that I'm talking about this particular match and the reason that I went through all of this mess to get to this particular place is because of that Daniel Bryan and Dean Ambrose match. I mean, if you guys are all about the future of wrestling, we know that Daniel Bryan does not need another surgery, so he is on his way back. And while we consider the fact that he's on his way back, we also know that Dean Ambrose is out for a few weeks, but he's going to be on his way back. Is this a future match at a future megacard for the future WWE? Absolutely. Dean Ambrose versus Daniel Bryan. It's a WrestleMania main event every single day of the week. And I'm so glad that on this September 9th, this Tuesday, we're able to go back and look at the history of professional wrestling and see what happened, because I'm curious what's going to happen tomorrow. Of course, we know that tomorrow is TNA Impact Wrestling, and we know that it's going to have an exciting program for us. But as we look back at the history, at these birthdays, at these deaths, at these events that took place, we can't help but to look forward, because it is my opinion that with the advent of the WWE Network and the young new talent that's coming up through the NXT program, that the wrestling industry has the ability to once again regain its focus on an industry-leading, ratings-leading monster. And I want you guys to tune in on this exclusively here on YouTube at Rockin' Wrestling Radio and tell me just what you think in the comments sections about the history of wrestling and the future. Hey, you guys hang on just a minute. I'm going to have to go take another swig. We'll be right back with some more and a little bit about WWE Raw. Thank you guys so much for hanging on with me as I got myself a nice cold glass of Diet Mountain Dew. Got a little bit of this out of my throat and got ready to go some more. So guess what, guys and gals? We're talking about wrestling. Is there anything else to talk about? I mean, if you guys are into the genre like I am, I mean, let's be honest with one another. What else is there out there? As a matter of fact, there is absolutely nothing. And when I think about wrestling, I think of four main organizations, and those organizations are as follows: WWE, NXT, ROH, and TNA. And I'm going to ask a question. It's a very simple question, and I want you guys to comment below. I want you guys to talk with me about this to see what you think, as I'm going to tell you what I think. Which of these four organizations, and we are going to count NXT as if it were a completely unique organization in and of itself, which one of these four organizations do you see as the top organization as it relates to professional wrestling? And I have my opinion, and I know you have your opinion, but first let's take a glance, if you will, at the guys and gals that represent each organization as their champions, and then we're going to break this down like a shotgun. Let's start over at TNA, because frankly, that's my least favorite organization. No offense against anything to do with the wrestlers. I think the wrestling there is amazing. But as far as the promotional skills and the way that they run their show, I'm not 100% pleased. The World Heavyweight Champion in TNA is a guy that I am pleased with, Lashley. I think Lashley has a great career. I think he's a phenomenal athlete and a great wrestler. Their tag team champions are represented by the Wolves. This is a young up-and-coming tag team that I would like to see more by, but I'm certainly interested in seeing where they'll go. Their X division, to me, is a little screwed up. I've always foreseen this as it was a cruiserweight division, but somehow Samoa Joe is the X division champion. If you ask me, Samoa Joe should be the World Heavyweight Champion. Samoa Joe, to me, is the end-all, be-all. He reminds me of Bam Bam Bigelow, just with a little bit more talent. Samoa Joe's awesome. X division, I'm not sure. Knockouts champion, I'm not sure that you can get better than Gail Kim. I mean, when it comes to Gail Kim, she is as good as it gets. So I'm really pleased with that. Now, if you go over to Ring of Honor, their champions are represented, and quite frankly, amazingly. Michael Elgin just lost that title to Jay Briscoe on the 6th, and it was a great match, one for the absolute ages. But Jay Briscoe, he's a great guy to represent the Ring of Honor brand because of his quality of wrestling. Of course, I thought Michael Elgin was a great guy to represent the Ring of Honor brand. Any way you go between the two of these, you're not going to go wrong. Their tag team champions are represented by Red Dragon. Now, this is one of those pieced-together teams that I'm not too sure about, although I do like them individually, especially Kyle O'Reilly, and we all know Bobby Fish can go. But the thing about these thrown-together tag teams is they don't have that mainstay, and they certainly don't last as long. Like, you look at the Rockers, that wasn't a thrown-together tag team. It lasted a long time, and out of that came stars. You can't really take stars who are singles wrestlers and piece them together out of the gate in a tag team to create something amazing. Although Red Dragon is good, and I am impressed, I do like to see something like the Briscoes holding that title. And, of course, when it comes to champions, who is a better champion than Jay Lethal? He is representing their World Television Championship, and he is a phenomenal wrestler. We have seen some of the greatest move sets and some of the most unbelievable things come out of Jay Lethal, and I am really, really, really impressed with Jay Lethal, and I think that Jay Lethal is just a phenomenal athlete. Then we can go over to NXT. And you guys know as well as I know, Adrian Neville as the NXT champion is absolutely amazing. The guy is phenomenal. Not to take anything away from AJ Styles, but the guy is unbelievable how good he is. And the fact that he can keep going and going and going is just a testament to his perfect quality and his unbelievable status. I think about Adrian Neville, I think about the greats in the business, and I know that that's maybe a long shot for some of you, but I certainly do put him right above the majority of individuals, and I see him as one of the best that there is, and I'm really impressed with Adrian Neville. Of course, the tag team champions in NXT are the Ascension. That's Connor and Victor, and I really like these guys too. I like the original entrance they had when they got to NXT because it just made more sense to me. I really like the way that they wrestle, the way that they work together. I'm really impressed by these guys and really love what they're doing. And then, of course, you have WWE. Brock Lesnar carrying the sigil, if you will, the number one guy. And then, of course, there's the Usos, and then there's Sheamus, and then there's Dolph Ziggler, and then there is, depending on which week you tune in, Paige or AJ Lee. Now that we've went through all of the people that represent all of these wonderful organizations, I'm curious what you guys feel about these wonderful organizations. TNA, this is my opinion. The production value suffers because of a lack of management. Mismanagement has really put them in a rut, and I think that if they don't get something together, they're going to end up being on some kind of crazy network that makes no sense at all. They might be featured in the middle of Oxygen or the Oprah Winfrey Network or something crazy come next year because their production quality in terms of the way that the things are being ran is nothing but mini WWE, and that's a problem. Ring of Honor, I would like to see given the spot that TNA had, and I would like to see the people that run Ring of Honor to up their production in terms of the staging and that quality as well. Ring of Honor, in my opinion, has the ability to be the show. There is no doubt in my mind. If you put some star power behind Ring of Honor, and they're going in the right direction with AJ Styles and a few other guys. They're going in the right direction. But if you put that star quality with Ring of Honor, you have yourself an amazing brand, one that could compete with WWE, not emulate, but compete with WWE. So I'm really interested in seeing where Ring of Honor goes, and I would like to see more AJ Styles in Ring of Honor because I think that AJ Styles is just why he's not in WWE, I'll never know. It's just one of those. It's one of those Sting things. Why he never made it, I'll never figure it out. And NXT also, if you must know, to me, NXT seems like it has the footing to be a real program, not just a developmental program, but a real program. And if you must know, NXT has the people at the microphone too that make a great program. Tensai and Alex Riley and that hot blonde that I can't think of her name. These people are absolutely amazing, and they bring it. They have the ability to do it. And, of course, this Thursday night, 2 days from now, they have the ability to show us that they're going to bring it. We're going to see, and I think I forgot to mention her earlier, we're going to see the NXT Women's Championship, Charlotte versus Bayley. And, most of us, we think about this and we, whatever. But in reality, the NXT women, they bring it too. And so, while you're talking funny, I think it's very important for you to get yourself in line with what reality is. And that's the fact that this could be one heck of a match. And it's something that I'm certainly looking forward to. On NXT TakeOver this Thursday night, there's another great match coming up. And it is it's a tag team title match. And it's going to be the Ascension versus Kalisto and Sin Cara. And, you can say what you want, but this is a really good match, too, because these guys will fit well together. The big raw power versus the smaller guys, and I'm really interested in this match. It's my opinion that you're going to see the Ascension lose the match. But probably the biggest thing that's going on in NXT right now is the Fatal 4-Way. And that's what I'm really interested in seeing. You don't get bigger stars and bigger talent than this. Adrian Neville, Tyson Kidd, Tyler Breeze, and Sami Zayn for the championship Thursday at TakeOver. And I'm going to tell you this, to be honest, this is an amazing match. And there are no guys, four of them, better than these four to be in this type of match. I feel like I'm watching an indie show every time I watch NXT, and that's exactly what I need to be watching, and that's exactly what the wrestling industry needs, is that independent appeal. And ECW gave us that in the Attitude Era and even before. And WCW and WWE just grabbed a hold of it and ran. And that's what wrestling needs right now, is the ECW-esque, the star-building quality of ECW and the raw appeal that it had. I think that NXT and ROH could possibly have that. And then, of course, you have WWE. I would like to see more wrestling from WWE. I would like to see these guys do more in terms of actually wrestling a match. And then I would like to see a little bit less of what's going on that we'll be talking about in the next segment of guys just dominating who they're trying to push and get over. But to be honest with you, I think that WWE is still the place where it's at. It's the end-all, be-all. It's the Mecca. It's where if you're going to be somebody, you're going to be somebody. And I think that WWE has the ability to continue to bring it. They're just having to tweak a few things because of the network, because of a few injuries. But at the end of the day, WWE will return reigning strong. So that was my look at the four organizations that lead the way. And, of course, there is a lot more out there that we could talk about and that I'm interested in talking with you guys about. I want to know your comments. right here exclusively on YouTube. Just get below right here after you click subscribe and type in your comments, and we'll continue to converse about this. Hey, guys, one more break before the grand finale, WWE's Raw show last night. We'll be right back right after this. Hey, Nicholas Cross back here with Rockin' Wrestling Radio exclusively at YouTube.com. And thank you guys for joining me each and every single day here so that we can talk about the things that we love the most, and that, namely, is professional wrestling. How many of you guys are big wrestling fans? Give me a oot yeah. I don't know how you spell that, but you can try your best. I know that was cheesy. So, as promised, since the very beginning, we are going to talk about Raw last night. And what is there better to talk about than the things that have went on and the development that WWE continues to have to go through? Raw had many features last night on what it coined as its season premiere. One of the features was we got to see some NXT talent, and of course that was in promotion for this Thursday's TakeOver event, only on the WWE Network. And the NXT brand and the NXT product, rather, I can't even talk, I'm so excited about NXT, is just off the chart. And of course the match at Raw was Adrian Neville and Sami Zayn defeating and wrestling Tyson Kidd and Tyler Breeze. And the reason that was is so that fans could familiarize themselves with what was going to happen Thursday night on the WWE Network at a fatal four-way for the NXT Championship between Adrian Neville, Sami Zayn, Tyson Kidd, and Tyler Breeze. This, to me, was a really good thing. I remember when wrestling would do crossovers with other brands and other organizations, and we almost have the idea that NXT is its own entity. You remember when ECW was around, they would sometimes come over to Raw, and sometimes you would see WWE guys at the ECW TV tapings, and that was a usually pretty exciting event and exciting thing to add to a card. What I would like to see is what we saw in times past, where NXT got a little big for their britches and tried to do a takeover. It doesn't have to be a permanent thing, but every once in a while, have an NXT guy do something unbelievable representing NXT. I think what you'll do then is you'll give NXT a little bit more street cred, and you'll bring more viewers that cross over between each of the programs. Of course, I would be willing to say that if anybody watches NXT, they're probably watching WWE as well. With that said, there was a lot that happened on WWE that was really, really good, and maybe it could have been a turning point for WWE. One of those things to me was the segment between John Cena and Paul Heyman. Sometimes John Cena gets it, and sometimes John Cena don't. Sometimes he's hot, and sometimes he's not. When he gets into this stupid little repetitive joking mess that he does, it's old, it's cheesy, and only my kids like it. But Monday, John Cena was on fire. We saw the emotion. We saw his insides basically hanging out of him as he just laid it out all on the line about how he was and who he was. Paul Heyman, of course, brought to him the destruction of John Cena would equal the destruction of Brock Lesnar. And what he meant by that was basically saying, look, Cena, if you will give in to this dark side of Cena, that will give you the ability to beat Lesnar. And, of course, Cena said, there is no dark side. I am John Cena. And, of course, the moniker Eat, Sleep, Conquer, Repeat that Brock Lesnar says was only changed to say Eat, Sleep, Be John Cena, Repeat. And that was pretty interesting to me because we saw the passion that John Cena has. We saw that drive and that fire on the inside of him. And maybe that's the John Cena that needs to stay. Or it's time to change John Cena into Hollywood Hogan Part 2. Another reason that Raw was epic was its double cage match feature. One of the cage matches was Roman Reigns and Randy Orton. The other one was Chris Jericho and Bray Wyatt to continue their feud. And this was a really good thing as well. I think that WWE's edgier matches has always been part of what Raw is, and I think it's also going to be part of the fabric of what Raw will become. When you open the door for something that's not seen every single week, and when you add something to the appeal of a show, you're really bringing in a new creative force that can change something from mundane to epic. And I feel as though while this wasn't the greatest Raw that we've ever seen, it was epic as of recent past. The match between Randy Orton and Roman Reigns was unbelievable. Once again, it's my opinion, Randy Orton's carrying this feud. Randy Orton is a great wrestler, and unfortunately, he's being used, in my opinion, in the wrong way. I would love to see a babyface Randy Orton to replace the babyface John Cena, and I think that a lot of people with a different attitude from Randy Orton would really grasp onto him. Nevertheless, Randy Orton being unbelievable or not, the match was fairly good. It actually had a strange ending, though. Well, after the ending, after Randy Orton was disqualified, the whole idea was the Authority would then beat the crap out of Roman Reigns. And this is where I have a problem. I think that Roman Reigns is too much of a juggernaut. He's not Godzilla. He's not a beast. He's not a monster. He's not Brock Lesnar. I understand that if the theory is correct, you have to prepare him for Brock Lesnar, so you have to give him that view. But he can't keep beating the crap out of one of the top wrestlers of the entire decade, Kane, just at the drop of a hat. He also can't keep laying waste to other guys, Seth Rollins, who's the future of the company. I think when you start doing that, you're really setting yourself up for something ridiculous, and I think it's unfortunate, and I think that it's sad. But at the same time, I feel as though that you got to somehow build Roman Reigns to be a beast, and that's what WWE is trying to do. Another one of those featured cage matches was, of course, one of my favorite guys in WWE, Bray Wyatt, and another one of my favorite guys of all time, Chris Jericho. I really enjoyed this match, and I really liked the fact that Bray Wyatt walked away with a victory. Things were fast-paced, then they slowed down, and they were fast-paced, and they slowed down, and then it became just a regular wrestling match that everyone loves to watch, and that's what I love about WWE. Just these matches that everyone loves to watch and is exciting and just brings a new appeal to wrestling, a new appeal to an old genre that needs revitalized. And I think these guys are doing a good job, especially on Monday. Another match that it really wasn't a feature match, but it was something that's important to me, was Seth Rollins versus Sheamus. The reason is because as we're continuing to develop new talent in the future of WWE, we have to do that through the venue of these younger guys. And I think Seth Rollins is an example of what the wrestling industry is going to become. Without a doubt in my mind, one of the best wrestlers in WWE right now is Seth Rollins. And there's no question that it's going to take a lot to get to his level. And if it's my vote, he should already be the WWE champion. That also goes to say for Dean Ambrose. Just unbelievable guys, unbelievable wrestlers, and unbelievable talent. Raw also had its downsides, as generally you would expect in a 3-hour show. And one of those downsides was what didn't make sense to me. I understood the entertainment value, but I didn't understand it at all. And that was the Jerry Springer segment where the Bella Twins were basically on the Jerry Springer show. I don't get this, and I never will get this. And I don't think that Jerry Springer's even relevant enough to be on TV with WWE at this point. And the next thing is, why do they need Jerry Springer as a mediator when nobody ever needs a mediator to make a combative function between two individuals in the WWE? I don't know what in the world they're thinking. I don't know where creative's going or why it's going that way. It did it, and I can't take it back, but you know what? Oh, well, maybe next time we'll figure something out. Of course, there is a lot of stuff that's going on in WWE that we question, and then there's a lot of stuff that's going on in WWE that we are looking forward to. I am curious to hear from you guys down on this segment, this section. I want you guys to type in what you're looking forward to in WWE. A lot of you may say Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 31. A lot of you may say another John Cena butt-kicking at Night of Champions in a few weeks. I don't know, but I want to hear it. I want to know exactly where you think the WWE is going and exactly where you want it to go. What do you think? What's your favorite thing? Also, while we're here and while we're talking, who in the world ever said that the WWE was going out of business is dead wrong? In closing, I'm just going to say this. Sometimes businesses project loss. It doesn't mean closure. And that is exactly what WWE is dealing with. They're dealing with a loss right now while they're trying to remarket themselves and revitalize their product. Do not expect anytime soon the company among companies to close down. Hey guys and gals, Rockin' Wrestling Radio right here. Nicholas Cross, I thank you guys for tuning in. Join us the same time, the same place tomorrow, as we discuss all things indie.